Have you ever noticed that the more you explain yourself, the more people seem to question you? You give reasons, details, and proof, hoping they'll finally understand. But somehow, you end up looking less confident. Why does this happen? The answer has less to do with what you say and more to do with what your behavior communicates. In this video, we're going to uncover the psychology behind over-explaining, why it can quietly weaken your presence, and how confident people communicate differently. And by the end, you'll know exactly when to explain yourself, when to stop, and when silence becomes your strongest response. Point 1. Over-explaining can make you look unsure. Imagine someone asks you, "Why didn't you come to the meeting?" A confident response might be, "I had another commitment, so I couldn't make it." That's it. But an insecure response might sound like, "I really wanted to come, but honestly, I've had a lot going on. I was going to leave earlier, but then something happened, and I thought I could still make it, but traffic was terrible, and I know it probably looked bad." Notice what happened. The person was only asked a simple question, but now they are giving a full courtroom defense. Psychologically, this can signal uncertainty. You are communicating more than the facts. You are communicating, "Please believe me." And people can feel that. This is why confident people often appear powerful even when they say very little. They don't constantly fight for approval. They state their position and allow other people to have their reaction. That is a powerful skill. Because you cannot control what someone believes about you. You can only control how honestly and calmly you communicate. And that leads to something even deeper. Point 2. You don't need everyone to understand you. One of the hardest lessons in adulthood is realizing that some people will misunderstand you, even when you explain yourself perfectly. Think about that. You can be honest, you can be respectful, you can give them the full story, and they can still choose the version of events they prefer. Why? Because people don't interpret information completely objectively. Their assumptions, emotions, past experiences, and personal opinions influence what they hear. So sometimes your 10th explanation doesn't create understanding. It simply gives someone 10 more things to argue with. This is especially common when dealing with someone who has already decided what they think about you. You say, "That wasn't my intention." They say, "But you still did it." You explain. They challenge the explanation. You explain again. They find another problem. And suddenly, you're trapped in an endless cycle. The mistake is believing, "If I just explain it perfectly, they will finally understand." Sometimes they won't. And your peace cannot depend on that. There is freedom in saying, "I've explained my side. You're free to see it differently." That sentence communicates something powerful. You respect yourself enough to stop begging for agreement. Point 3. Explaining everything can turn into seeking validation. Here's where this gets personal. Sometimes we aren't actually explaining ourselves. We're asking for permission. Permission to make a decision. Permission to say no. Permission to change. Permission to leave. Permission to have boundaries. Imagine you tell someone, "I can't hang out tonight." They ask, "Why?" You say, "I'm tired and need some time alone." That should be enough. But you feel guilty, so you continue. "I've been really busy lately, and I haven't been sleeping well, and I know we haven't talked much, and I don't want you to think I don't care." Why are you doing this? Because somewhere inside, you believe your no isn't valid unless someone approves of it. That belief can quietly destroy your confidence. Healthy boundaries don't require a 10-page explanation. Sometimes, "No, I can't" is enough. Sometimes, "That doesn't work for me" is enough. Sometimes, "I've decided to do something different" is enough. You don't have to turn every personal decision into a public debate. Point 4. Silence can show self-control. Silence makes people uncomfortable, especially when you're used to defending yourself. Someone accuses you of something. Your instinct says, "Wait, let me explain." But what if you pause? Take a breath, think, then respond calmly. That pause changes the entire interaction. Because emotional control is visible. When you immediately react, people may see emotion. When you pause and respond deliberately, they see composure. This doesn't mean becoming cold or ignoring legitimate problems. It means refusing to let another person's accusation control your emotional state. There is a difference between "I need you to believe me" and "Here's what happened." The first asks for approval. The second communicates confidence. And confidence doesn't need to be loud. Point 5. The right people don't need constant proof. Think about the people you trust most. Do you need them to constantly prove they care? Probably not. Why? Because their behavior has already created trust. You don't need a long explanation every time they are busy. You don't need a detailed defense every time they disagree with you. Trust reduces the need for explanation. This is important because sometimes we over-explain because we're dealing with people who repeatedly question our intentions, and we assume the solution is better communication. But sometimes the real solution is recognizing the pattern. If someone consistently misinterprets everything you do, if they demand explanations for every decision, if they use your explanations against you later, then giving them more information may not solve the problem. It may simply give them more material to criticize. That doesn't mean everyone who asks questions is toxic. It means you should pay attention to patterns. Healthy people can disagree with you without demanding that you constantly prove your innocence. Point 6. Stop trying to control other people's opinions. This may be the hardest lesson. You can control your behavior. You can control your honesty. You can control your effort. But you cannot control someone else's interpretation of you. The moment you accept that, you stop wasting energy trying to manage everyone's perception. Someone thinks you're too quiet. Okay? Someone thinks you're too ambitious. Okay? Someone doesn't understand your decision. Okay, you can clarify when necessary, but you don't have to chase every misunderstanding. Because the more you chase approval, the more power you hand away. Your confidence becomes dependent on someone else's reaction. And that's a dangerous place to live. Real confidence is being able to say, "I know who I am, even if you don't completely understand me." Remember, you don't have to explain every decision, defend every choice, or convince everyone to understand you. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can say is nothing at all. Speak clearly, stay honest, and let your actions prove what your words never could. The moment you stop chasing approval, you start protecting your peace. So the next time you feel the urge to over-explain, pause and ask yourself, am I communicating, or am I seeking permission? If you already said what needed to be said, let it go. Your confidence doesn't come from being understood by everyone. It comes from trusting yourself, even when they don't.